All right. How's it going, guys? Forgive me, my daughter's probably playing in the background. Today I just kind of wanted to talk about I'm doing this preemptively. Because there seems to be a development that's happening, and I can see it. It's only happened a couple times so far, but I can already see the future that this might hold for me. The future events that can take place because of this whole journey that I'm on, this whole questioning about looking into Islam and looking into these Dawa guys and having talks with them and stuff like that. I'm getting little comments from it's from seemingly Christian brothers wondering my status as a Christian, wondering how well informed I am as a Christian, because apparently the people that I'm talking to on these Dawa teams are not knowledgeable about Christianity at all, and that I should listen to other people, that I should listen to, I should give it a fair shake, Christianity a fair shake. I just, let me say that I have been Christian for almost 10 years now. I converted. I am not a cradle Christian. I was not raised by Christian parents, very loosely in the American sense of Protestantism. I was raised Christian, but not a sincerely believing family. My dad is no longer religious. My mom never went to church. She went to church when we went to church as a family when we were very young, but not very rigorously or not very regularly. But one thing I wanted to do is I want to present a very small collection of my books that I've read over the years. Sorry, I have little blueberry on my lip. I didn't get beat up or anything. Nobody's big enough to do that anyways. No, I'm just kidding. But I wanted to show you the breadth of my spiritual knowledge and put it on full display so that people understand the kind of person that I am. And I know, I'm predominantly just listening and asking simple questions to these Dawa people. I'm not giving them the full story. I'm giving them so people don't know. So people don't know who I am or where I come from or what I would consider my intellectual capabilities as a person in the Christian tradition. But let's go through just like a brief overview of some of the books that I've acquired over the years and the kind of books that I've read through. So I've read through many spiritual traditions because I had to kind of search through them to get to the ones that I thought were true in the first place. But let's just go through them in no apparent order. So here is the anthology of the Discourses on the Pali Canon from Bhikkhu Bodhi. So I read through this. It just kind of goes through a lot of things about the Buddha and about his life and stuff. There's, it goes into the Noble Truths, the planes of realization, path to liberation, mastering the mind, defining one's perspective on the world, the way to fortunate rebirth, approaching the Dhamma. It's a lot of, it's really involved. It's not just a simple modernist book. Bhikkhu Bodhi is a traditional monk. He's a Westerner, obviously, who converted, but another early book that I read from Orthodoxy, from Eastern Orthodoxy, not Catholicism, was Our Thoughts Determine Our Lives by Elder Thaddeus. It's a really wonderful book. I've read it a few times. It's sad in a lot of ways, but just about his life, basically, and his kind of perspectives on things. He's a simple monk. There's not really a lot of deep theological truths in this book. It's very simple, but in a way it's profound. It's written by a very meek and very humble monk, somebody who I don't empathize with at all. I'm a big towering brute of a man, and this man was damaged quite early on. He was very ill when he was a child, and it's all about his perspective on that. And so a sweet man, a loving man, but nonetheless. I got the Baltimore Catechism 4. This is when I was going to an SSPX parish here in my hometown, because I only wanted to go to receive, not to receive because I wasn't confirmed yet, but I only wanted to go to the Latin Mass because I had seen the Novus Ordo Mass as invalid for a little while. I don't hold to that now. But I was recommended the Baltimore Catechism 4 from an SSPX priest. And so this was when I was telling him that I wanted to convert from Eastern Orthodoxy to Catholicism. He recommended me this catechism. So I read through this. It's obviously, it's good. It's just an addition to the catechism. That's cool. I have this is another early Catholic book. This is Our Faith by Michael Pinnock. 2,000 years of Catholic Church doctrine. It goes into, what is meant by the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Who is a saint? Why do we pray to saints? It's all these things, all these kind of what I would call rudimentary questions, but still, it's a good book. I would recommend it to anybody. It was another one. This is the book I initially got when I first started to look into Christianity, and I was thinking I was going to become Catholic first. I ended up getting swayed by Eastern Orthodox arguments, and I became Eastern Orthodox, but now I'm Catholic anyways. So it was like a small departure point, but this is one of the first books that I got when I was looking into Catholicism at a... why is my camera crap? God, I hate this camera. Never buy a Razer Keo, guys. That thing is absolute hunk of junk trash. I would literally rather have my Logitech C922 again. But Catholic Catechism for Adults. It's good. It's good. But like I said, it was before I took my departure into Eastern Orthodoxy, before rejoining Rome. So there's that. I have an old... I found this gem. This is back when I was a Protestant. Back from when I first converted to Christianity, back when I was in college. So John Owen, The Mortification of Sin. This is peak Protestant stuff. He was a Puritan. And man, it is really, really something. Really, really something to read. But I liked this kind of stuff back in the day because it was actually hardcore. It wasn't the mamby-pamby friendly Jesus figure that I was raised with, because I learned to hate that figure with all of my heart and soul. I wanted a powerful God, a vengeful God, a God of righteousness, and a God of vindication, of rescuing. And so I liked the Calvinist God, the God that came to rescue a depraved man that had fallen so deeply into sin that he couldn't save himself, that the soul had fallen into such depravity that only God's grace could save you, that it was only an act of God's will towards you, that he could pull you out of those depths. Me and my buddy used to talk about how the Arminians, not the Calvinists, so you had the Calvinists and the Arminians, not Armenians, as some people might mishear me, but the Arminian dispute between Calvinists and Arminians about predestination and free will and all of these things. My buddy and I used to say that the Arminians believe that, we use this boat analogy that was like, while you're floating out in the ocean and somebody falls overboard, that somebody can cry for help, and that God will throw them a raft. And that's how the intersection of like our will calling out for God coactively working with us, and then we both kind of work to get ourselves back on the boat. And he said, well, that's the Arminian position. Well, the Calvinist position is that you actually drowned out in the water and your dead body sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and that Christ Jesus descends down into the depths and breathes life back into your dead, rotting corpse and pulls you out of the water and brings you back to the boat. That's the difference between those two conceptions of Christ and Christianity. And so I, of course, fell in love with what I believe to be the more poetic version of those two belief systems. So I was initially a Calvinist. I was initially a Protestant. Very short amount of time, because then I started reading church fathers, and I was like, oh, wow, there's priests and bishops, and there's an early church, and there's apostolic succession, and they all believed in the real presence in the Eucharist. They all believed in the majesty of the Church of Rome. They all believed in infant baptism. They all believed that in baptismal regeneration. So these are like very real. Those were all real teachings that are undeniable. You read any of the early church fathers, and they're all going to pretty unanimously agree on that. So I pretty quickly dropped this, but I just wanted to show you guys that I'm not making up my history or something like that. That this is real. I had a time where I was part of this Protestant thing. So like I said, I'm not showing you my entire library because that would take forever. But I'm just showing you some snippets of where I've been. right? Some snippets of where I've been. This is a biography of Muhammad by Martin Lings. He was one of the perennialists and traditionalists that I really came to admire and to really like. Him in the wake of Rene Guénon, Friedhof Schuon, and those guys, and Julius Evola. These are political commentators. These are metaphysicians. These are people talking about the way modernity has become erroneous, how modernity has fallen into error, liberalization, and secularization. These people were the arguers against it. And these were some of the primary people that brought me out of my Protestantism, because they showed me that I should go to the source, that I should go to the Orthodox sources rather than trust these modernist interpretations of things. So this is just a quick biography. I had this before I even really, really seriously was looking into Islam, just because it seemed like an interesting read. And I wanted to check it out because, it was interesting that almost all of the guys that I admire from the traditionalist school all became Muslims, all became Sufis mainly. But Rene Guénon, and I'm going to link an article about, it's going to be from the Catholic perspective. So he's going to obviously argue in the antithesis, but it's going to give you a synopsis of what Rene Guénon thought about the West. And he basically thought that the West had died spiritually. He thought that the only thing that there was a little bit of spiritual reality and spiritual metaphysical truth that was left over in the Eastern Orthodox Church, but just a little bit, only mainly in the Russian Church. Everywhere else had fallen into modernism, the Greeks especially. The Greek Orthodox Church, because for those who don't know, the Orthodox Church is similar. The Orthodox would argue with me about this, but I don't really care anymore. I'm past that. But the Orthodox Church has a ton of autocephalous churches, and so it's not as much of a unified church as the Catholic Church is. They're actually an open schism right now between the Russian Eparchate and the Russian Patriarchate and the Greek Patriarchate, because of the status of the Ukrainian Church and Russia's dealings with them, which of course I side absolutely with the Russians' authority over the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and there's no ability to deny that through canon law. Anybody who disputes that is just a NATO plant or a Western apologist that I don't care about their opinions anyways. So there's that. I read that a long time ago, but so that kind of planted the seeds, because I always thought it was weird that all of these traditionalists that I really loved, who have been right. They've been proven right about almost everything that has come to pass in this world and in the life that I've lived, that I've seen it borne out. All of them became Muslims. So that kind of prefaces you as to why I'm even here and why I'm looking into it in the first place. And then I've got another book. It says Little Simple Sufi Text. This is written by, I can't remember. This is his Arab name that he took, but... Marco Pallas was another one of the traditionalists, yeah. I think this might be by Martin Lings as well. Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, the Sufi Doctrine of Faith, Vision, and Gnosis. Yeah, it might be... Yeah, it is Martin Lings. So it's another book by Martin Lings, but it's short, really tiny. See, as you can see there. And then I've got this is another Buddhist book. This is a modernist book. Thich Nhat Hanh he was all about Buddhism in action, and he was believed in like kind of this proselytizing Buddhism, and wanted to integrate it with modern sciences and stuff because of the ravages of war that he saw. It was okay. It was a good introductory text. It's not anything that I would recommend to anybody to read. It's okay. There's a reason why he was nominated for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The Vietnamese Buddhist monk, poet, and peacemaker who was nominated by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, as if I don't consider Dr. Martin Luther King to be a fraud in all respects. I would take Malcolm X over Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. all day. So I think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Fed, that he had that. Yeah. So yeah, no, I don't think he's as the kind of person that we've been taught in our history books at all. So Thich Nhat Hanh was on Oprah and other modernist trash. So he's not really a trustworthy person, but I'm just showing you the ebb and the flow of my thoughts. So this is very early on in my investigations into Buddhism, but yeah, transforming suffering into peace, joy, and liberation, the heart of the Buddhist teachings, whatever. There's that for what it's worth. Then I've got some stuff from Ignatius Press. I've got other stuff from them too, but the early church in her own words, Clement of Rome, Ignatius of Antioch, Justin Martyr. That's who I'm baptized after, was St. Justin the Martyr. So I took the baptismal name Justin. That's why if you ever hear somebody calling me Justin or Dustin, I answer to both, because number one, I sympathize a lot with St. Justin Martyr for his teachings. And number two, I got sick and tired of getting called Justin my entire life when my name is Dustin with a D. But it's fine. It's happened so frequently that I was like, oh, fantastic. A saint that has the name that I get called a lot anyways, and I agree with most of his teachings. So, not agree with most of them, but I really respect and admire his journey into the faith. About how he hybridized. He thought that Christianity was the perfection of all paganisms and stuff like that. There's a lot of really brilliant writings by Saint Justin Martyr, but there's that. I have other Ignatius Press printed stuff, but this is another one that I thoroughly enjoyed. Simple enough to read, but very profound. It's a good witness to the teachings of the early church. Here we go, On God and Christ. This is by St. Gregory of Nazianzus. So these are just pure theology. It's a small book, but it's purely on theological matters, on the Holy Spirit, and you can see like my highlightings and stuff like that there. Just orations of his on the Son, on the Holy Spirit, on God the Father. It's just like his postulations on the Trinity and things like that. So, pretty good. Good translation. I appreciated it. It's got, good theological weight to it. I've read it multiple times now because it's short enough that it's worth the read. On the acquisition of the Holy Spirit, Saint Seraphim of Sarov, a monumental saint of the Eastern Orthodox Church who wouldn't be affirmed by the Catholic Church because it's post-schism. Once again, I would categorize this. This is a very short and very easy read because not only is it a small book, a very thin book, but it's very large, the text. So very simple. This is a common thing amongst like a lot of Eastern Orthodox mystics, is their writings are not intellectual. They're not intellectual texts as they are in the West. The Catholics tend to be the ones that have these especially in the history of people like following the traditions like Augustine, and then oh my gosh, why am I'm blanking right now? Whatever. The West tends to be whatever. The West tends to be a little bit more intellectual. That's not all the case, because you have people like Vladimir Losky, and you have I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head, but that's fine. They have intellectual writings too, but predominantly the mystics of the Orthodox Church tend to be more simple. So just they're a lot of them are small like this. They tend to be that way. So I'm not dodging the Orthodox, but they tend to have an anti-intellectualism to them, an anti-scholasticism to them. Now that doesn't mean they're dumb. That doesn't mean that they don't have anything to say. It's just not that kind of very wordy intellectualism is more of a Western Church thing than an Eastern Church thing. Although the Eastern Church has had a few of them. St. Gregory Palamas is obviously one of them. Losky. And there's some other ones. The first person who I really encountered who converted me to Orthodoxy was Jay Dyer. I was a Dyerite. And I still love Dyer. I love that guy. I think he's a good dude. I would disagree with him about a few things now. But it's not because I think he's inept. I think he's a profound intellectual. I don't know why he doesn't see it. I'm not sure, and I can't really speculate on that. But I love that guy. I wish him the best ever. I wish him the best. And again, I'm very, very happy that he introduced me to the writings that he did. But I was a Dyerite prior to when I was Eastern Orthodox. He was the one who swayed me from the Catholic position, and then after I kind of looked into the other sources, I became more swayed of the Catholic position. I left Eastern Orthodoxy for Catholicism. But I think that I agree with St. John Paul II saying that they're two lungs of the same church, that they're, East and West, and they need each other, and they need to reunify and get the schism out of here, and so that Christendom can reign supreme once again. Then we've got the Heart Lamp. This is a much more profound and more traditionally prestigious Buddhist text. The Lamp of the Mahamudra and the Heart of the Matter. This is really deep, heavy spiritual stuff from the Buddhist perspective. I really enjoyed this book. I think it has a lot of really wonderful things to say. This is definitely more Tibetan than it is, because you've got pretty varying sects of Buddhism. You got the Mahayana and the crap. I'm just drawing blanks here, guys, because I'm showing you guys so much info. But you have you have the Tantric Tibetans, and then you have the Mahayana, and then you have the God, I can't remember the one that's the one that's more, it means like teachings of the elders. It tends to be a little bit more ascetic. It tends to have less focus on like the salvific figure of the Buddhas, like coming back and reincarnating to like save more people, to bring people to enlightenment and stuff like that. It's been a while. I mean, my Buddhism hasn't been a focus of mine for quite some time, so forgive me if I'm not remembering the terms. Hinayana, Mahayana but I think Hinayana has the same connotation as the Mahayana. But regardless, this is a pretty profound spiritual text. Good book, but kind of, once again, just to show where I've been. This is one of the hardest books I've ever had to read. The Ladder of Divine Ascent. This is rough reading. For Westerners, for people who come and they read Julius Evola, stay away from this book. Or if you've read Friedrich Nietzsche, stay away from this book. Don't read it. It will make you very angry, and it'll hurt your heart. When Nietzsche and Evola talked about that the Christians were basically death worshippers, and that they made weakness a virtue, and all of those kinds of things that Evola and Nietzsche try to say, this book will make you not see anything else ever again. Just be very careful with this. It's supposed to be very profound spiritual practice, but it is really, really intense. There's just a lot of things that the monks do in this book that's going to make you kind of just shiver. If you're from that position. Now, if you're from what I would consider the Western paradigm, where you consider the ultimate forsaking of your ego to such a level that you will allow profound suffering to happen to yourself, which is funny because I think that that's an icon for what the West is doing to itself. This book will tell you all about it. So, brutal though. Absolutely brutal. Very hard to read. Yeah. On poverty, on gluttony, on malice, renunciation of life. Man, it's intense. Fantastic, but intense. Another early Orthodox book of mine. The Gurus, the Young Man, and Elder Paisios. Cool book. Very, very interesting. That's from St. Herman's. Interesting book. Cool, fun read about how the guy, went through all the Eastern spiritualities of like Indian, the Vedantic tradition and a little bit of Buddhism, and he was a Western materialist, and then he encountered the monks on Athos and stuff, and they like cleansed the demons out of him and stuff like that. It's cool. It's a cool book. I think it's got a lot to say. It's fun. I would love for any Christian to read this. I would love for any Protestant to read any of the more of these books that are not Protestant, and not be Protestant anymore. Any Protestant, stop being Protestant. You're doing Christianity a disservice by doing that. American evangelicalism is truly a Zionist disease, and you need to stop that right now. Just in my what I would call informed position, please do yourself a favor, join an apostolic church, become Orthodox or become Catholic. Stop wasting your time. You're wasting your time and everyone else's time. Those churches aren't true churches. Read the church fathers. Stop messing around. This is a cool another Tibetan book, The Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. I have a few other books of his on like audiobooks or ebooks and stuff too, but I wanted a hard copy of this. This is actually a little small hardcover. I had a fun time with this book. It's cool. He was kind of same thing, kind of a modernist in a way, but he's doing the whole Jungian thing where it's like he's a modernist, but he's trying to return out of modernism by like using modernism itself, since Buddhism has a lot of relativism and stuff like that in it. But it's cool. This is by Boston and London Shambhala Press. It's cool. It's interesting. Wouldn't really recommend it to anybody, but I was recommended it to read it. Here's another simple Buddhist book by Bhikkhu Bodhi again. Way to End Suffering, The Noble Eightfold Path. Buddhist books are, in general, the Chogyam Trungpa one is good too, but a lot of these books are really wonderful. Like, they have really amazing things to say about liberation from suffering and about the human condition and stuff like that. I've liked almost every Buddhist book I've ever read, no doubt. So I don't have a copy of it. Here, I can find the cover of it. I have a picture of it on my phone. If you want to read, if any Christian wants to read, or a current Buddhist, I don't know who's on my channel, wants to read a great book that involves both the Buddhist perspective, or a very well-respected Buddhist, and his talk about Christianity, read this book. Can I make it be seen? The Unexpected Way by Paul Williams. That one. I don't have a copy of it, hard copy. I found this, there's a PDF. If you just Google it, you can find the PDF. On Converting from Buddhism to Catholicism. Amazing book. 10 out of 10. Recommend that book to literally anyone who's discerning between Catholicism and Buddhism, or Christianity and Buddhism, because you're a Westerner and we have a lot of access to both Buddhism and, of course, Christianity. Read that book. It'll just do very well for you. Trust me. Here's another Ignatius Press. 4 More Witnesses in the Early Church. There's more Christians before Constantine. So this is a good one. This is a sequel to the other one that I have, to the first 4 witnesses. Good. Solid information. Recommend that any Protestant. That's for dang sure. And then here's another Essentials of the Faith. This is a guide to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's pretty self-explanatory. Same things. What is the oneness of the church? It's just a lot of questions answered. It's written in a very, that's what you'll love about a Westerner, is Catholicism is written in the Western brain, in the Western mindset. So the way that it writes these things and the way it answers the questions is made just for the Westerner. And so it talks in your tongue and it talks in your language, and the way your brain goes, oh, well, what does this mean? And what does this mean? And what does this mean? And the way you extrapolate information like that, it speaks to you in that exact linguistical tone. All of those Catholic books do. But especially the ones about the Catechism. This Is Our Faith one by Michael Pinnock, and then this one. So yeah, those are some snippets as well. I was going to show, I should have brought out some Rene Guénon books, but I don't really have a lot of physical copies of those. So I would have to pull up, I don't have them on hand, I don't think. No. Oh, and then if you are an Orthodox who is discerning, or if you're Catholic or Orthodox and you're discerning between the Orthodox and the Catholic positions, read this book, Russia and the Universal Church by Vladimir Soloviev. Can it focus? Can we get focus? No? I hate this camera so much. Anyway, that says Russia and the Universal Church by Vladimir Soloviev. That'll pretty much put the debate, in my opinion, to bed. I don't think there are other compelling reasons and compelling information. I think that Michael Lofton and some other of the Catholic guys are going to, and even Eric Ibarra's book that he put out on the papacy are pretty sufficient in that regard. I don't have copies of those on hand. Michael Lofton's isn't even out yet, but regardless. So yeah, guys, I'm not an idiot. I'm fairly well informed. I've been around the block. I'm not investigating Islam from the position of a stupid person. I'm investigating Islam because of the respect that I have for the other traditionalists that became Muslims, and their writings and how profound they are. And if you've read Rene Guénon, you will know how impressed, or Julius Evola, or Friedhof Schuon, or Ananda Koraswamy, or Martin Lings, or any of those guys. You will know, or Marco Pallis. You will know how profound those guys are and how intellectual they are. These are not stupid people. And Marco Pallis didn't become a Muslim. He became a Tibetan Buddhist. And Ananda Koraswamy, I think he stayed a Vedantic, an Advaita Vedanta. They call him a Hindu, but that's a misnomer. It's a Western term. Sanatana Dharma is what you would call that religion if you were being accurate, I guess. But I'm not a fool. Been around, read quite a few books. I'm not saying that I'm not open to inquiry and stuff like that, and not open to discussion. And like I said, these aren't all my books, but that's just some of them. So that's the kind of person that you're talking to. And so just have some respect, I guess. Don't try to point me. Don't try to act like I'm an idiot just because I don't like sit there and throw out daggers and argue at everything that a Muslim says to me. I have a purpose for the way that I ask questions. I have things that I want to know. And so, yeah, don't, just because I don't like rigorously defend my side or my position doesn't mean I don't have a position. It doesn't mean that but I am working through things. I do, but I hold my positions, but I don't feel weak enough or from a position of weakness enough to really argue something that to me is self-evidently true. So sometimes I'll keep my mouth shut about whatever. And this isn't saying that I'm not to be trusted from the Muslim side either. I'm asking questions in good faith. But just because I don't seriously push back on things because I want to get the Orthodox Muslim perspective on things is fine. And I don't need to push back on it that hard, because ultimately, if it comes down to when I ask the questions and then I get very unsatisfying answers about things that I already know I'm pretty sure I know the answers to, well, that's going to show me how the worth and the weight of their positions on it. So I don't have to sit there and defend my positions if people can dig their own graves. And it's the same thing that goes for Christians. Like, it seems that when I talk to my Christian brothers and sisters, I ask poignant questions. I don't feel the need to like sit there and go do battle with them, because having a conversation is the best way to do things. So having a conversation is the most productive way forward for spiritual seekers. It's not a debate. I didn't go on to any of those shows to be in a debate, to defend my positions. I'm asking them about their faith. I'm asking them questions. I'm there as a guest. So they deserve honor. They deserve dignity. And just because I don't stick my guns out and go blasting about the intellectual aspects of the Christian faith doesn't mean I don't know the faith. And it doesn't mean that I don't haven't read things or anything like that. It doesn't mean that, I'm a big guy. I'm not a dumb guy. I can hold my own. And so it's out of generosity and kindness and compassion that I'm there letting them say everything that they want to say. So and I'm interested in what they have to say. So, and I respect them. So I don't want disrespect on my YouTube channel between Muslims and Christians. But it's funny because the most disrespect I've got are from the Christians. Or at least seemingly disrespectful, mounting disrespect, which is basically calling me inept. And then they always end up pointing me to places like Sam Shamoon or David Wood or these anti-Islamic polemicists who I've watched up and down for years. I know almost all of their content. I don't need to go into my positions on those guys, but I'll just leave it at that. I know of them. I think every Christian on the internet knows of those guys. So it's not like I'm going to encounter something, or Bob the Builder who's out there in Speaker's Corner, or Jay Dyer, or Michael Lofton, or Jimmy Akin. I listen to Jimmy Akin's podcast Art Still. Are all these really solid Christian thinkers. I know them. I listen to them. Listen to their podcasts. Listen to their content. So, anyways, so just don't doubt. Just don't. Both Christians and Muslims, I'm here in good faith. And I'm not a fool, so I would appreciate it if neither side treated me like one. But it seems like that's heavily slanted into one side right now, and that's the reason why maybe I'm appearing a little bit more aggressive to the Christian side, because they're the only ones who are treating me like somebody who's uninformed. I've gotten, and it's not even on my channel, it's on other channels where I'll say, hey, thanks for having me on, and then there'll be a Christian in the chat being like, you obviously don't know what you're talking about the Trinity. And I've never even given an exposition of my beliefs on the Trinity. I might somewhat indicate my perceptions of it just to facilitate conversation, but that doesn't mean that's my end-all, be-all conception and understanding of the Trinity. It's just banter. It's just to further dialogue and to show that I'm not there to fight. So, because I'm not there to fight. This is not a combative YouTube channel yet. No, I'm kidding. But I'm not an apologist right now. I don't have the wealth of knowledge to be an apologist. I don't. I have good knowledge of Christianity, of Catholicism and Orthodoxy in particular, and of Protestantism, but and of Buddhism and of Hindu and of Advaita Vedanta or Sanatana Dharma. I've been all over the place, so I'm fairly well versed in religious matters. Wouldn't call myself a scholar. I'm not educated. I didn't go to college for that. I did go to college, but not for that. So I'm educated in that regard. But anyways, so have respect when you present to me information that you think is like the kind of gotcha argument contrary to what somebody says. Trust me, I'm probably already doing the investigations. This is what I do for fun. I investigate spiritual truths. I look into religions. I read esoteric religious texts. That's my stick. That's my stuff. You will find me with a tome. I will be either on the computer, I'll be reading a book, especially ever since I got disabled by this damned either virus or vaccine that I got. I even do that even more now, because now I can't work, partially because of my eyes, but also because of the use of my legs. But I haven't been completely taken from me, but I'm just a little bit more unsteady than I was before. So pray for me in that regard if you care, which I hope you do. So anyways, I just want to make a quick video, guys, and kind of have a little bit brief discussion about that, so that you don't doubt who I am or where I come from. Anyways, God be with us all. We all desperately need it. See ya.